Thank you, Nabraz. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. President, I'm really very proud to be here today. This is my first time at the American University in the Hook. And I want, not out of appeasement, but to salute Kak Masroor for his dedication and for his commitment, and the KRG, Mr. Nechirvan, to build this institution in Kurdistan, in the Hook. I remember back in 1992 or 3 with the American University, you also worked very hard to establish a chair for Kurdish study. So now here in 2016, really among this group of friends and people, and I'm very, very proud to speak in front of you. I'll speak in English because speaking in Kurdish makes it more complicated for translation. Let's be direct with our audience. I think all the statements that we have heard really were excellent. And Zal raised some critical question. Is it the time to declare independence, Kurdistan independence now? No, in my view. Is it the time to debate and discuss independence and the processes? Yes, I think it is long overdue. Also, is it right to wait for the ideal conditions? There would be no ideal conditions. And is it right to go for a rush decision or casual decision? No, I think we should be careful and deliberate to tackle this issue. And as Barham said, my friend and colleague, really never before a Kurdish entity has lasted this long and has achieved this much under the current leadership of the region. Now, not as a theoretician, actually, about international law or self-determination, but as a practitioner of diplomacy for Iraq, for the KRG, and internationally, I can speak to you from experience. I remember in 2005 or 2006, the president of Iraq was a Kurd, Mr. Talabani, and the foreign minister was also a Kurd, myself. We went to the General Assembly for the first time, and we saw this group of nations sitting under their flags. And there was a moment of anticipation, and we looked at each other, and we said, isn't the time really for us also to think about a place in this assembly? I said, yes, really it is. It's our right. We should also not hesitate to consider this possibility. I think the goal of Kurdish independence has been with us, with all of us, for years. And we've struggled a great deal. We've sacrificed a lot of, given a lot of sacrifices for certain limited goals. At the beginning, after the First World War, really the Kurds were calling for more equal citizenship in the new created states. Then it evolved around the idea of some decentralization, autonomy, until federalism, and then self-determination. The right of self-determination is inalienable to all nations. I think all international holy convents, I think, testify that all nations have the right. Yes, international law, Mr. Bernard, has its limitations about sovereignty, territorial integrity, don't touch borders. These are taboos. They cannot be changed. It will lead to more wars and frictions. But no, we've seen through history, really, this can be challenged and changed. As a Kurd, have been in many positions, really, I will look upon my history and say, we have missed opportunity. when the time comes to do something right or bold, we shied away or we took the other way or the other course of action. All along, all Kurdish revolutions, movement, and so on, either the miscalculation or not the full understanding of the regional, international circumstances. I think now, with the experience, with globalizations, with the educations, with our leadership is in a position to make the right decision this time and not to be regretful at all. I think there is a great deal of understanding, I would say, in the international community, even in our neighborhoods. Believe me, interacting with many Arab countries recently, their thinking have evolved a great deal. Recently, I've been in a number of think tank conferences in Manama, in Abu Dhabi, and people are talking about it openly, freely. I mean, I think you can go, you have all the rights, you have established yourself, your credibilities. But again, there are a number of restraints. Let's be very frank and honest. It's our wish, it's our desire, it's our yearning to be independent, but at the same time, there are certain limitations to that. The key limitation, in my view, is the geopolitical situation that constrained this movement. I mean, we are not the United States, we are not South Sudan. This is a different situation here. It's far more complicated. It doesn't mean that any decision we take, we should not take the risk into account. But I think that is a very important element to consider. Secondly, is Kurdish unity. You cannot have your independence, not with full 100% Kurds agreeing to that, but at least the majority, I think. At least we should find a platform for those who will subscribe to these sacred goals of the Kurdish nation. As with the relations with Baghdad, in my view, Baghdad will not give up Kurdistan, contrary to what many people believe, that, yes, I mean, it can tolerate, tells you go back to the blue line or the green line of 2003. Zal knows these details. We went through them, and Peter also, the Three Musketeers, during our deliberations of the constitutions. And that excludes Kirkuk, that excludes Mosul, and many other disputed territories. This is what they have in their mind, not to have an amicable divorce that you stay there, we stay there, no. I mean, having worked in Baghdad for all these years and interacted with many different people, but I will tell you something. Recently, Baghdad really have shown some very serious trends about the unification of this country called Iraq. A number of dramatic decisions, I think, have been taken, or legislation that leads to the de facto division of Iraq. Majority rule is against the constitution that we have agreed to have a consensual democracy, inclusive government. Now, if they want to go that way, it means really other communities, other nations would definitely have a different thinking. The legalization of the Hajj al-Shabi, despite all the sacrifices they have given in the war against, but to create an alternative army is unacceptable, I think, to every Iraqi of them. The regeneration of feudalism or tribalisms by legislation, again, really will lead to undermining the civil state that it is enshrined in the Iraqi constitution. Not to mention the new 2017 budget, which they have really included or introduced some I would say, unseen mines, let's say, to be blown up against the KRG, and also to enhance inter-Kurdish, deliberately, inter-Kurdish tensions. These are very, very unhelpful signs. Secondly, the day after Daesh or after Mosul, what will happen, I think is very important. As many speakers mentioned, we must have a vision. What will happen after? What will happen to Mosul? Whether it can remain as a governorate as such, or should be turned into sub-region to include or to be able to diffuse all these ethnic, communal tensions and animosities. Here we must have a say. We, the Kurds, finally have to get our act together. Otherwise, always there are risks for going this road. But the sacrifices that you have given so far really outweigh this goal. Thank you very much. Thank you.